everybody, Giselle Grenier here from artplace.ca. This is going to be another Book of Backgrounds video. It's going to be an experiment. We're doing a different technique based on something I just completed. And this was created on primed binder paper, just notebook paper, using metallic paper resist. That was the technique. And I also created a little matching card with it. And the problem I ran into this was because the paper started to peel up because it was wet. So I made a note that collage the paper, let it dry, then apply the paint. Okay, so I tried to save about a half an hour drying time and worked right away. And some of the paper came up, but not a big deal. This is a book of backgrounds. It's for experiments. So in this lesson, I'm going to create something very similar, but I'm going to use metallic paint instead of paper. Now I did prime the paper already to save some time. I just used my Decor Media gesso with my big 1-inch wash brush and applied 2 thin but even coats. And I've got my book paper all set up here. And so this is just to create a little bit of texture in here in the background. And I'm going to be using my medium at medium. And I'm just going to collage that down. And I'm not going to collage everything. I'm going to go off the paper so I can trim that. And I'm just going to collage the pieces because I want to see what happens when we start painting. Well, I know what's going to happen, but I want to show you when you're painting directly on gesso. I got paint on me, look at that. And the book paper doesn't matter if it's upside down. So this book paper, if you're a book lover, you might want to turn the video off. I get a lot of my books for art purposes at Value Village. And that's a place where you can bring your gently used items to sell. It helps charities. And some of the stuff that they can't use, they throw away. And I don't say I rescue the books, but I rescue them, but then they end up being taken apart. And this particular one was a dictionary. And the dictionary, I'm ripping up the pages because the pages are transparent. And you know what? What it would cost to buy paper like that? And so that's what this is for. And I think I used too much paper on that side. Oh well. Anyway, so that's what this is. So if you can also print paper on your printer. For this particular thing, this is going to be a background. It doesn't matter really if it's transparent. And this is just for texture, nothing else. This will take a little bit to dry. Let's put that one right there. Okay. And I'm just going to go around, make sure I've got medium on all sides. So once this dries, then we're going to come in and I'm going to stencil immediately right on the page the way it is. Because I want to basically replicate the paper that we used. And so in the other lesson, I glued this down and then this was wet. So when I was rubbing, so the paper's coming off. Well, I found a stencil from Decor. It's for their decor line, which is used for furniture. So I found something similar and I'm going to be using that. And I'm also going to be using the metallic, the silver. Okay, to replicate that as close as possible. So we'll see what happens. It's all about experimenting, so we'll see what happens. And the colors I'm going to be using, again with the fluid acrylics, So Thaler turquoise, cobalt turquoise hue, Derelid yellow, Hansa yellow light, and Titan buff. And in the same order, what we're going to be doing is I cut out one color. I went to turquoise instead of green, and I didn't put orange in here. So we're going to go yellow first, then Derelid yellow, then cobalt turquoise hue, and then the going to stencil some circles with Titan buff and Thaler turquoise. So that's going to be the color being added, but we're going to stencil that first. So this has to be completely dry before we do anything, before we do any stenciling. Otherwise, all that's going to happen is the paint's just going to go underneath because this is wet. So we'll come back in a few minutes. This is already starting to dry. We'll come back in a few minutes and we'll move on. Now you can choose, if you don't have a stencil big enough, you don't have to stencil the whole thing. I'm lucky with these nice big stencils that they do fit everything. But what I want to do is either go off the sides on both or just do this here. So I won't have an outside here. So the way to get around that is if you don't want to stencil any of this, you use masking tape. For me, it's just a background. It doesn't really matter. And actually, now that I say that, okay, let me just show you. So if you wanted to protect that part and you didn't want to stencil any of that, you would just put masking tape right there. Like so. Okay, so now you're going to get just that as the stencil. I want it to be offset. It's the perfect size for these 9x12s. So I'll just have that offset. And metallic paint. And I'm going to be using my Clear Choice stencil brushes, and it's the ones with the short bristles. This is the orange handled. And let's see. And the short handled brushes give me a little bit more control. The long handled brushes are good when you want to load a lot of paint. And also the bristles are much more flexible. You'll develop here, I mean, I can stencil with my number 8 bristle brush. That's what I was using for the longest time. But now my brush, as my brush is wearing down, it gets caught in the stencils. So I'm just going to continue on doing this. I mean, this is boring, but I got to do it slowly. I'm going to do it in real time so you can see if anything happens, you'll be able to see it. And I'm probably going to do 2 layers of this, which means my stencil is going to need some heavy duty cleaning after. And this is one of the reasons why, if you're going to do 2 layers, if you don't want to sit there and kind of match everything perfectly, you need to really clean your stencil when you're finished. Especially if you want your stencils to have nice crisp edges. Some of the stencils that I don't mind if it's a really rough edge. This one here doesn't matter if the edge is rough or crisp for this particular design. It's just a background. You may be tempted to actually leave the stencil on there, use your heat gun. I wouldn't do that. First of all, stencils are plastic. Well, this one is anyways. And you don't want to cure the paint onto your stencil if you want to keep crisp edges. You can see right here the paper didn't quite stick down enough. And I'm just going to do a few, I'm not going to do them all. Remember that when paint is tacky, you have to let it dry. Otherwise, you might run the risk of, when you're painting, you're going to pull it up. So I've got some really good opaque coverage right here, and it's transparent right here. Oh, I hear Mia. Okay, there we go. Lift it up. There we are. So now I'm going to let that dry for a good half hour. You can see where I applied too much paint here. That's okay. Let this dry for about a half an hour, and then we'll move on to applying the color. Okay, laid out all the colors. So to go back over them again, they're the Decor Media Fluid Acrylics, Hansa Yellow Light, Darilid Yellow, Cobalt Turquoise Hue, Titan Buff, and Phthalo Turquoise. And I'm going to try working with my number 8 Bristle Bright for this, and if that doesn't work, then I'll go to a little cloth. I'll have a baby wipe handy just in case. And just a reminder that when I collaged everything, I didn't put the matte medium over everything. So when the paint goes down, where it's just the gesso, it's going to just soak right into the gesso is really going to hold it. But where the matte medium was, we'll be able to wipe some of that back. And you can see the nice metallic shine there. Yes, I went a little overboard here, but that's okay. I'm going to start with the Hansa Yellow Light. Put that on there. So the first experiment's going to be what we wipe back. Okay, so on the gesso, it almost comes off. It just stains, but where the matte medium was, it comes right off, and there's still the metallic showing. Okay, so that was all right. And Darilid Yellow. And how you put the paint on is up to you. I like my paint kind of grungy with the rough edges. That's up to you how you want to do this. If you want something a bit smoother, you can do that. If you want to use your fingers, that's fine. I'm not going to use my fingers for this one because this is just way too big. And I wouldn't leave it like that. That's just not my style. I'll just feather the stuff out. Whoops. Look what I just did. Look what I just did. Me not paying attention. Not paying attention. Let's try that again. And I was realizing that I'm off camera. I'm off camera a bit. I think I got a little bit too much of a close-up. I'm going to go back into Hansa Yellow Light. All right. I'm going to rinse that brush. Grab another baby wipe. And this time I'm going to take the baby wipe and I'm just going to squeeze it in the... I'm going to need more than that. Squeeze it in the kitchen cloth to get rid of most of the moisture. I don't want it wet. I just want it damp. This still may be a bit wet. I just wanted to stress that. And what happens is that when it gets wet and then you rub, the paint comes off in a really nice way. See, here's perfect. You just got to keep turning your paper around. See where the matte medium was? It comes off super simple. Now you want to try another experiment. I shouldn't be doing this because you really want the stuff to come off. Rubbing alcohol. See where it left a circle? Rubbing alcohol will get it off. Rubbing alcohol is my go-to emergency stash if my stencils don't come clean. Even with the Decor Stencil Cleaner, the 1000+ stain remover, if the paint cures, nothing's getting it off. Which is a good thing, it just means the paint is really strong. All right, so I think I'm gonna get a, how am I gonna do this one? Let's try with the cloth. I just want to try some different things to apply the paint differently. So cobalt turquoise hue, just a little bit. I love painting, excuse me. I love painting with my fingers. So I can get really, I have a lot of control, and by changing the pressure, I can choose whether to have something that's really dark or really light. Plus, I'm feeling the paper. So as I'm rubbing, I can feel the edge of the paper here, so I can choose to really work with that. Where if I'm using the brush, I'm not going to feel that. Look how it turned green. I love working with my fingers. And you can choose to what degree you want to apply the paint on. Whether you want the paint to be more blue or more green, or if you want to have your page more high key or low key, being more towards the white or more towards the dark. That's completely up to you. I love this distressed look. Okay. Love that. And the metal, yeah, it's resisting it. If I were to go back over with, I'll just take this one here, the damp cloth. Yeah, the metallic is resisting it. I went a bit wonky on this one here. I'll just wet that. Because we have the gesso on here, we're able to do a lot of distressing. I would just keep the rubbing to a minimum on the paper. Look at that. I love that. I love that. Again, you can choose how much of this you want to do. I love the fact that I can now use the unstick for my palette as well, because it's much larger. And thinking that how I want to do this design, where I'm going to have the stencil going, and I changed it. I was going to use the punchinella, but I'm not going to. The sequin waist, I'm not going to use that. I found a really nice distressed stencil from the decor line, Americana decor line. I'm going to use that. Because the stencil itself is very, very distressed, the effect, I want to make sure that my background is distressed. Now I'm just lightly going over everything to get that real transparent, sanded look. If I want something a bit more green, I can pick up Hansa Yellow Light with a little bit of blue. There's my green. Darken the edge a little bit. And when you want to darken an edge, try to avoid thinking you just want to use black, because black makes things kind of muddy. Just look to your color wheel and add the darkest color to the left or to the right of it. For example, if you want to darken If you want to darken yellow, you can add orange, which will make another color. But if you want to like darken the value itself, add its opposite. Okay, I'm gonna get a baby wipe. Yeah, that's working quite nicely. Look at the shine. And I think now on camera, well, I'm looking at the monitor, and this looks more, everything looks more green, and it doesn't seem that the yellow seems to really pop. That's the one disadvantage I have when I'm working with yellow, is that it looks green. Where's my cloth? I'll use this one. I want more blue. Now, because the paints are transparent, it's naturally going to go green. If you want blue, you have to apply a white color. You can even use a tinting base. And then you can apply a different color. All right, so that won't take long to dry. I'm gonna put all these little cloths, and I have a little bucket on the side here filled with water, which and also has 1000+ stain remover. Don't do this over your design, and that way anything I know I'm not going to use, I'll put it in this, and cleanup is half the time. Let me just hit this with the heat gun just for a sec. Now while that's cooling off, that's paint I would hate to waste. I would hate to waste that. I hate wasting paint. Okay. The stencil I found is this Dressed Harlequins from the Decor line, and I'm not going to apply it everywhere. The darn glare. Nothing I can do with the glare, guys. Sorry. And in the other video, I also did a bit of a white underlay just to show you the differences when you want to have something a bit more opaque. So I'm going to do that as well. And let's do it in small pieces. So I'm going to get my 1/2" wash brush. And get tight and buff. And I'm just going to really lightly, dry brush, really lightly go over some areas. What this also does is it pushes the color back a bit. You can do this with gesso as well, but I didn't want the stark white of gesso. And yes, I can tint the gesso, that's not a problem. So I'm just setting it back. And then I can just touch and wipe just to remove some of the pieces of it. When I stencil, it's going to look a little bit different. Once the paint goes on and cures, you won't be able to wipe it off. Safely anyways. And let's get a horizontal line going here. Vertical line. I like this style that I'm working on right here. It resembles barn board with the wood grain, and that's a bit too light for me. There we go. It really pushes the color back. I'm using a small brush. A big brush would get the job done faster, but I don't want it everywhere. That's too much. This comes off so nicely. Okay, do we still have metallic? Yep. Yep, we're good to go. All right, so now I'm gonna put that brush in the water and get our stencil. Yeah, that'll be all right. And I'm gonna use the 1/2 inch. Ooh, that is really vibrant, holy smokes. I did a color chart. That's really vibrant. Okay, I'm gonna try really lightly and get a paper towel. I like the color because it is transparent. Oh, that's not too bad. Okay. And I'm noticing there's some really pretty cutouts in this. And I'm going to try not to do just 2. Stencil. Oh yeah, gorgeous. Stencil at least 3. So you don't have anything into, oh God, that is beautiful. Love the stencil. Okay, I'm gonna have to go to a different stencil now. Let's go into the Titan Buff. Let's see what that looks like. Yep, nice contrast. On the lighter areas though, now remember, actually I didn't want it there. Remember, ooh, I can white back with that stencil. I can create a bright spot right there. I don't want this over the metallic. I want it to create some little opaque spots. Or semi-transparent spots. No, this would be semi-opaque, but I don't want to cover any of the stencil, the metallic. The phthalo turquoise is fine. That's just what I want to do. That's just me. You can do whatever you want. You know what? I like the phthalo turquoise better. So now over the metallics, I can do this because it's transparent. And I'm preparing for a live webinar that I'm doing. Webinar is like it's an online class. It's called webinar now. Seminar over the web called Demystifying Your Art Tools. One of the common complaints that I'm getting, people can't stand cleaning their stencils. And I'm going to do a demonstration on how I clean mine. I don't mind. I don't like cleaning stencils, but the way that I do it, it's not so bad. And this is something I'm going to be doing on a regular basis. So check out artplace.ca if you want to. It's completely free. Completely free. Cool. Let's see what happens if we mix a little bit of Titan. Actually, yeah, Titan Buff and Phthalo Turquoise. What do we get? That's going to be opaque. Yeah. Nope, not liking that. And now that I'm here, I'm going to clean off my stencil while I'm here. Because what this is also going to do is going to push any wet paint back into the stencil. And it'll also distress some of the areas inside if it hasn't cured yet. If you're doing this with frilly stencils, you got to be careful so you don't grab any of the pieces, like the little plastic pieces. This stencil is super heavy duty. Look at that. Okay, let's do a little bit on the edge. And I'm going to go to a different stencil brush. I'm going to have to go to my dome. And let's get a little bit here. Changes the direction of the diamonds. Before they were going this way, now I'm running them the other way. And then once this is done, your background is finished. You can, do this as long as you want. Go as far as you want. Overlap, change the colors. It's your background. So it's just a background. There we go. Finished. So I'm going to let this dry, and I'm not going to put any sealer on it because I'm not quite sure what I want to do with this when it comes to creating the artwork. But once this is dry, it's finished. It's ready to go because the acrylics already have a built-in sealer. So if this was an actual piece of art, you could leave it the way it is. Varnishing is always nice so to protect your piece. So the experiment using the metallic paint as a resist, yeah, it worked. And the only thing with this is that the resist, once the metallic paint, any paint that's over the metallics, once that's dried and cured, you can't wipe it off. So if you wanted it to be a true resist, like an actual true resist where the stencil part won't be covered with anything, you do your stencil, just the way we did it, let that dry, then go back over with, let's say, a gloss varnish, or, yeah, I would say a gloss varnish, or even the, you can try painting a little bit with the triple thick. That might be, that's self-leveling, so it'll spread out. But probably some varnish just going over that, a light coat, just to add enough. So when you do paint over it, you'll be able to wipe it off because nothing will stick to the gloss varnish. But there we go. All right, you guys, I'm off to clean off my table, get ready for my next project. So I would love to see a picture of what you've done. Please feel free to share it with me, either privately, by email, or post it in the private Facebook group. Links to both of those can be found on my website at artplace.ca. And don't forget to check out the Demystifying Your Art Tools monthly webinars if you'd like to hop in on that. So until I see you next time, stay inspired.